So, guys, unfortunately, Demon Slayer was not nominated for an Oscar. And I know a bunch of people are very, very upset about this. And I'm actually a little surprised that I've not seen a lot of people talk about this on YouTube yet. But there are a couple of things to say that when I noticed with a lot of the nominated films, many of them were not like films that a lot of people knew about. Like, it's really K pop Demon Hunters. And then there was also Zootopia. Obviously, a lot of people watch Zootopia because it's like a Disney or Pixar film. And then like Demon Slayer has done a lot of really just big stuff this year as far as, the animation, the storytelling, breaking a lot of box office records and other things like that. But the two other films, like one, I think it's called Arco, and Natalie Portman, was nominated. Obviously got nominated because Natalie Portman's like a city producer, was like a producer. But I just want to say that a couple of things. That number one, yes, the Oscars are very political. It's not about the quality of the work; it's about the politics. And sometimes what happens is two things: that there's the facade of the American dream, and that just means that when there's a film and it's like maybe an independent film or something like that, that usually wins like Best Picture to prove to all filmmakers, hey, if you work hard, you put a lot of time in the industry, you're going to win. Like, for example, a great example of that would be Rocky. Like, just to say, hey, we want to show the illusion of the American dream. Or there's also like films like, I know that there was a film about the Boston Globe, the Boston Globe exposing like abuse in the Catholic Church, or there was also like 12 Years a Slave, as well. Really, like how another film, I think La La Land, one that people said was La La Land that won best. No, it was Moonlight. Moonlight. So Moonlight won Best Picture, but what happened was they read off the nominations and said that La La Land won Best Picture, but then it was um it was a mistake. It was actually Moonlight. So sometimes you have independent films win Best Picture because they want to be like, oh well, anybody can win. The other thing is Oscar politics. Like sometimes with big studios, it's like every studio must win in a certain year. Like maybe one year it's Netflix, the next year it has to be DreamWorks, the next year it has to be Disney. And then also the other thing they do is career. For example, like the Sadafi brothers, they did a bunch of films, but this year Marty Supreme has like nine or more nominations. So they've kind of had to make a bunch of films over a period of time to be like, hey, now we get like one nomination or something like that. Or another great example is Forrest Gump versus Pulp Fiction. Like Pulp Fiction was a really great film, but Forrest Gump won Best Picture. But one of the reasons was because Robert Zelfanakis, who did Forrest Gump, he also did Back to the Future and a few other blockbusters. So it's almost like saying, hey, you know what? Because you made all these other films, we got to kind of give you these awards, really, because we want to reward you for your career. So those are kind of like how Oscar politics work. The other way Oscar politics work is that there are certain films that never win. Like, for example, Tarantino will probably win like a Lifetime Achievement Award. If he does one more film, it'll probably win Best Picture because he's retiring. But a majority of his films don't win awards because the Oscars don't like super violent content. Or a lot of people don't know this, but South Park Bigger, Longer, Uncut was nominated for music. Blame Canada, but it wasn't nominated for Best Animated Film. And one of the reasons was because when it comes to Best Animated Film, they always will seem to want like the PG or Disney type of stuff. Really, I think a couple of times there's been R-rated nominated animated films, but I think for some reason they don't want to open Pandora's box on that. I think another big issue is they said something about Netflix is merging with the anime studio. So what might happen is they might say, "Hey, we want stories coming from it, you have to merge with Netflix in order to win Oscars, really." So as some people said, imagine if you had Demon Slayer, the last two films their parent company merged with Netflix, and then they're like, okay, well, even though they have a better chance of winning because they merged with Netflix, they might have to censor the Demon Slayer, the next two movies, because they're like, oh well, Netflix wants it their way. They may have to. They want to change some things. They want to make sure it's not as violent or intense, really. So you may have. So that may also kind of be a thing too that happens in the future, um, where where anime will win that's R rated, but it has to go through Netflix or something, or the bigger studios, which is concerning. But the Oscars are very strict about content and very strict about what they find acceptable. Really, unfortunately, they're still in that era of very a very conservative. Like, if it's too violent or if it's very sexual, or if it's really profane, they don't like that because they want to act like, well, we're conservative or we're uptight, really. But also, I want to say with Demon Slayer, um, it's done a lot of like big things, really. Like, first of all, number one, it was nominated for a Golden Globe, which is a big deal. Unlike Akira, this is a film that broke a lot of box office records. It's very highly celebrated. It's probably the most celebrated R-rated anime film in history. Obviously, its success helped Chainsaw Man, and it kind of proven to a lot of people that anime can be very mainstream. The other thing that it does is that it really says that, hey, maybe in 2027 when you have Demon Slayer Part 2 or you have Demon Slayer Part 3 in 2029, maybe those films could be nominated for Oscars because you still have like two more shots. But it's definitely been very groundbreaking, and also too for an anime. And I think they said, like, honestly, they were thinking about making it a bunch of episodes, but the movies have very far reach, and I also feel the movies. The other part of these movies is that it's an interesting way to wrap up a series. Like, imagine if The Sopranos did the exact same thing. They said, hey, we're not going to have a final bunch of episodes. We're actually going to make a movie out of like a 2 part or 3 part movie with the last season of The Sopranos. That's very avant garde. That's something that's not been done before. The other part of it that I will talk about is that obviously that's also another big part. They have two more movies that they're creating. Like, obviously they need to learn how to go bigger and better, and it might be like, oh well, maybe not the first film, maybe it's the second or the third film, but they just have to keep on stepping, as Dusty Rhodes would say. Uh, the other part of it with Demon Slayer that I will say is about it not being nominated. The film did have a couple of issues. That number one, there were a lot of people falling asleep during the film. Number two, a lot of people were saying things like, 2.5 hours is long. The original script would have made it like a 3 hour or 3 hour and 15 minute movie. The next thing that really was an issue is that when you do a movie like Demon Slayer and you have it spread out over 6 years, um, it's not good because two things. There's a lot of spoilers, and I remember on Instagram, like a week after I saw the Demon Slayer film, they kept showing like who lives and who dies. And also too, there's people on YouTube, like there's somebody on YouTube who made their own Infinity Castle film. So I know like in the next film with Kokoshibo and a few other, and like Doma, like honestly who lives and who dies and how the battles are going to come out because it's already kind of spoiled, really. And then the other part of it is that they really have to think about how to tell a better story because there is a lot of information. So it's almost like, what do you recap? What is going to be engaging to the audience? What is a little like excessive, really? Because I did feel that what a lot of people were saying on the Demon Slayer film, the first one, like it was way too long. They could have cut some things out, and they did an excellent job with the film because you honestly knew what Demon Slayer was about based on the fight sequences. Like there's a scene with Tanjiro and his flashback of his father. They really didn't need to include that because They've already done enough explaining that, you know what, he has, like, everybody, all the Hashiras are people with sword powers, and they're fighting a demon named Muzan. So they have to like look at this, the second film, and the third film, and be like, hey, you know, what is stuff that we don't need to include? You know, like, you know, again, you know, it's like you're serving a burger. You don't need to serve that with a menu or a conversation about how the burger was made or the history of the restaurant. Really, you have to kind of take the excess out. Really, so definitely, it's very unfortunate that wasn't nominated. The other thing about Oscar politics is maybe K-pop Demon Slayer is going to win. It probably has the best chance of winning, but sometimes what they'll do is they'll nominate other people to be like, hey, you know what, we don't want um, other people who vote. There's nominations, and then there's people who vote for award winners, but we don't want the award winners watching Demon Slayer and then saying that's better, and then take away from K-pop Demon Hunters. You know, so sometimes they'll do that where in the nomination round, since it's going to be voted, uh, since they're going to vote again on the winner after the nominations, they just want to kind of thin the herd. So you may see one film that's very popular against other films that are not as popular instead of like all the popular ones. So, you know, it is what it is. It's unfortunate that's not nominated, but I just did crack down for you guys a bunch of the Oscar politics that get pulled. Really, it's unfortunate Demon Slayer's not nominated, but hopefully, the two other films will be.